Hello everyone, welcome back. For today's class, we will be dealing with The Gardener, a short story written by P. Lankesh. Before we get started, make sure to have your textbooks and a pencil. Let's start with the introduction of the writer. P. Lankesh, his time period is 1935 to 2000. He was an Indian writer, journalist who primarily wrote in Kannada. He had an honours degree in English from Central College, Bangalore, and then he also had master's degree in English from the Maharaja College, Mysore. And then let's talk about his works also. His first work was called Kereya Neerannu Kerege Challi. This is his collection of short stories which was published in 1963, and after this he also published several of his short stories, poetries, three novels, and he has also written many critical essays. Critical essays are nothing but when you are trying to evaluate somebody's work. So he has also done that from the writer's perspective, right? So when you're talking about another writer's works from your own perspective, you try to evaluate their work. So that is nothing but critical essays. And then he has also written translations. He has translated from Charles Baudelaire's La Fleur du Mal, Oedipus Rex, and Sophocles' Antigone. So he has translated all these books into Kannada, as well as several plays and films. His 1976 film Pallavi, a cinematic narration told from the female protagonist's point of view and based on his novel Biruku, won India's National Award for Best Direction. So female protagonist is where the female actress is shown as the hero. Protagonist means hero of the story. Antagonist is the villain of the story. So Pallavi was the cinematic narration from his novel called Biruku, to which he was won the India's National Award for Best Direction. Now coming to the translator, H.S. Raghavendra Rao translated this one into English. So P. Lankesh primarily wrote this one in Kannada and H.S. Raghavendra Rao translated this into English. You have a lot of information about Raghavendra Rao, but we need not learn all of it. We'll focus only on the important points. Now coming back to the story, this story is quite it talks about the human feelings that are sometimes when they take over the humans themselves, right? Sometimes your emotions are so much so that you would do anything in order to fulfill them. So this short story talks about that. Primarily, let us try to understand the difference between competition and rivalry. All right, so what is competition? Competition is when you have two or similar kind of goals that few people want to achieve, right? It doesn't have anything bad in it. But when it comes to rivalry, it means that no matter what, I'll have to win over this person. That is called as rivalry. So healthy competition is important, but when it comes to rivalry, right? So it talks about how humans are destroyed because of this huge emotions. Let us start off page number 59. Elaboration can only impoverish this account and make it less authentic. So the writer says, first line, elaboration can only impoverish. Elaboration is nothing but adding a lot of details, sometimes even adding unnecessary details. So here he tells, if I try adding a lot of details into this account, it will impoverish. Impoverish is nothing but it will ruin this account and make it less authentic. So this account, whatever I'm doing right now, if I add a lot of details into this, then it will make it impoverish. It will ruin what? The authenticity, the originality. The originality will be lost if I try to add a lot of details here. I conceived this story in a flash. So he tells, what is that account? The account of storytelling. He says, I came up with the story. Conceived is I started imagining. I came up with the story in a flash. Underline in a flash. In a flash refers to very quickly, spontaneously. I came up with this story. It has its genesis in my chance encounter with an old man. Genesis is nothing but origin, right? So how did I come up with this story? I came up with this story in a flash. Spontaneously, I came upon this story. But then again, it has its origin with my chance encounter. Okay, so I came across an old man. I came across him. That is how I came up with the story. He was standing in a coconut grove near Chandrai Patna. So now he's talking about that old man. So this old man is the reason why he started off with this story. Who started off? P. Lankesh. He is narrating the story. So he came across this man, chance encounter. It was not intentional. Somehow he met with this old man, and then he was in a coconut grove near Chandrai Patna. His eyes were suffused with strange memories and native intelligence. His eyes, his refers to the old man, his eyes were suffused. Suffused means it was filled with strange memories. So he had a lot of memories. He was an old man, obviously. He had a lot of experience, he had a lot of knowledge. So that is what the writer is trying to describe. His eyes were suffused with strange memories and native intelligence. That is, he had a lot of wisdom. Because of his age, he has come across a lot of experiences and he has learned from all those experiences. And he stood there, a tall figure, hair gone grey, a long beak like nose, and strong muscular arms. Please do underline this one. You might be asked to describe about the old man. So he was a very tall figure, and then his hair had gone grey, a long beak-like nose, and he had very strong muscular arms. In one hand, a spade. So, spade is an agricultural tool. He had a spade in his hand, which he used to tend coconut trees. That is, he had to look after the coconut trees. He was in coconut grove. So, in order to look after the trees, he had a spade in his hand, a newspaper tucked under his arm. So, he also had a newspaper. Most of the people, if you come across in the village, especially if they are old, they would not know how to read and write. But this man over here, he was a little different because he had a lot of native intelligence. His eyes were filled with experience, strange memories, right? And then he had spade in one hand and newspaper tucked under his other arm. He was a laborer, overseer, and philosopher all rolled into one. So you cannot say he was simply a laborer, right? Just because he had a spade doesn't mean that he is a laborer. He was an overseer as well. Overseer is someone who will supervise the work in the garden, right? Someone who supervises things, right? And then a philosopher, he was a thinker as well. So this old man was all rolled into one. He was simply not a laborer, nor an overseer, nor a philosopher. He was all rolled into one. So this is the description about the old man. He came to this garden one day after walking hundreds of miles. So what happens? This old man will come to a garden one day. So he will come there after walking hundreds of miles. So he'll walk for a really long distance and then he will come to this garden. The owner of the plantation needed a person exactly like him. So you know by now what kind of man this one is, right? He is a laborer. He puts a lot of effort and then he also knows things, right? He is a philosopher as well. He is an overseer as well. He is a laborer as well. So the owner of that plantation was looking for a man, and this old man came to that farm. And what happens next? A few words were exchanged. The old man stayed on. So after talking for a little bit, the old man will stay there. He will start staying on the farm. He was really useful. So what did the old man do here actually? He was well versed in agriculture and could understand the problems of the works. So he was well versed in agriculture. You already know that he was a laborer. So since he was a laborer, he knows how things are, right? So he was well versed. He knew everything. Well versed, underline. Well versed means the person who knows everything, A to Z of, right? Idioms and phrases. He knew everything in agriculture. Not only that, he could also understand the problems of the workers. So he was empathetic as well. He could understand, he could sense what was going on with the laborers as well. The petty thefts in the garden came to an end. Petty is small. If you have a garden, you know that things are usually getting stolen, right? If you have mangoes or if you have coconuts or whatever vegetation or plantation that you have, things might get stolen there. The same was happening here also in this garden. But since the arrival of the old man, all those small thefts and all robbery that were happening in the garden, they all stopped because of the presence of mind of the gardener or the old man. The income from the garden improved dramatically. So all of a sudden they started making large amount because all the losses were prevented. And the old man was so well versed. He looked after the garden, he looked after the workers there, he supervised everything. That is why the money, the income that they used to get increased dramatically, not in little numbers, but it started coming in lots together. There was a perceptible change in the lifestyle of the owner. Obviously, since he is getting a lot of money, his standard of living has completely changed now. So, perceptible is nothing but noticeable. Everyone could see how well the lifestyle of the owner has changed now. The plantation expanded. So plantation was, maybe it was a few acres. Now they have started buying, purchasing a lot of adjacent lands, because obviously he's getting a lot of money. But the owner became lethargic. What happened to the owner? The old man was doing a lot of work here, but what happened to the owner of the plantation? He became very lazy. Lethargic means someone who is very lazy and shied away from hard work. So he started getting a lot of money. That is why he stopped working at all in the garden. He left everything to the old man. He only took the money and then he enjoyed his life. His wife found all this very strange. So the wife noticed what was happening with the husband, and she was feeling sad because of the changes that happened in the owner's lifestyle. She found it hard to decide whether the old man's arrival was for the better or for the worse. Sure, since the old man came, they had a lot of improvement in the garden. They bought a lot of land. They had a lot of income. Everything was going well. The petty thefts that were happening all came to an end. But there was one problem. The lifestyle of the owner had changed, and this worried the wife. She started worrying whether the old man's arrival, was it for the best or for the worse. Her husband's wealth and social prestige had risen higher. So money gives you everything, right? So here the husband's wealth, he had some wealth, but now it has grown very much. Social prestige, the respect that people gave for him, the admiration that people gave for him, all rose to a next level. Everyone started praising him, everyone had started befriending him and things like that. He acquired a number of friends in the next town and an equal number in his own village. So what happened next? He started making a lot of friends. He had money, he was popular, so people were very eager to make him as his friends. So he had a lot of friends in his own village, and even in the next village he had a lot of friends. Even though he had precious little to do, his life became crowded with colorful events. So what's happening now? Despite the old man's arrival, who is looking after everything, the owner's life is crowded. He is still busy, but busy doing what? All the colorful events. What are those colorful events? She became apprehensive about his adultery. So he indulged himself in adultery. Right? He was not loyal, he was disloyal to his wife. So apprehensive means worried. The wife started worrying about the husband because of his disloyalty towards her. And umpteen other vices. Umpteen is nothing but many. Vices is wrongdoing. So he not only cheated on her, but also indulged in many other bad activities cultivated lately thanks to his newly acquired clout. So how did he manage to do all these things? Because of the newly acquired clout. Clout is nothing but the power. The power was nothing but the arrivals of the old man, which improved a lot of stuff in the garden. The farm, which was merely 10 acres, had grown beyond their imagination. Underline this one. The farm initially was only 10 acres. Now, since the money has been dramatically improved. They've also purchased a lot now, and it has grown beyond their imagination. That was fine, but their life was also gradually getting out of hand. Underline getting out of hand, which means getting out of control. There is no control over the life right now because things are changing very drastically. Now, when she was in a fix like this, one day, when she was in a fix, underline, in a fix was in a troubled state of mind, in a confused state of mind. So when she was in a difficult situation like this, one day what happens? The old man met her and behaved as though he knew all about her plight. So the old man, he was wise enough, right? So he had noticed what was going on with the with the owner's wife. So what he does, when she was in a difficult situation like this, what he does is he will meet her and then he will behave as if he knew everything that the owner's wife was going through, all her plight. Plight is nothing but all her problems, right, all her difficulties. He smiled at her and brought down an offering of tender coconuts from a nearby tree. So what he does, he wanted to soothe her. He wanted to make sure to give her some knowledge, right? He wanted to, because he was an old man, he considered the owner's wife as his own daughter, and he wanted to do something to the owner's wife. So what he does is he will ask her to sit down, and then he will offer her some tender coconuts. He sat on the embankment of the well. Embankment is nothing but the raised feature, the well, the stone well. So the dam. So he sat on the embankment of the well. She had no alternative and she sat next to him. So the owner's wife was also polite. She had no option. When he sat on the embankment, he will also sit there. The sun was slipping away in the western horizon. So it was evening, it was setting. The sun was setting in the western horizon. His rays were reaching the walls of the well through the foliage of coconut. Foliage is nothing but leaves of the coconut, mango, jackfruit trees. So it was a pleasant evening. It was getting dark. The lady was sitting on the embankment with the old man, and she was having some tender coconuts with her. What happens then? The old man began his narrative. The old man will start telling her a story. What is it about? In a far off place, once there lived a man called Tamarna. So he begins with the story and then he says, in a very far away land, there was a man by name Tamarna. Underline, he had everything. 10 acres of wetland, underline this one. So 10 acres of wetland. Wetland refers to the availability of water source there. So it was in excess. 10 acres of wetland, underline, a comfortable house, people too ready to do his bidding. Bidding refers to orders. He had a lot of wealth, he had a lot of people to do, to take his orders. The most important among all his possessions was his rival Sangoji. Underline this one, Sangoji. So he says, the old man says, this man Tamanna, he had everything, but among all the things that he possessed is nothing but owned. Of all the things that he owned, there was one important thing, that was his rival Sangoji. Sangoji, underline. After proceeding this far, the old man started fumbling for words as though he had committed a mistake. So he'll tell, there was a man, and then his name was Tamanna, he had 10 acres of wetland, he'll say so and so, and then finally he says, among all the things that he owned, there was one person which was very important, and that was his rival Sangoji. Once he tells the name Sangoji, he will start fumbling as if he has made a mistake. He looks confused and he's trying to gather information in his mind. What have I said? What is going on? Is it Sangoji? Is it somebody else? He's trying to figure out what he has done as if he has made a mistake. But then the lady, the owner's wife, she was listening. She felt like going away saying, all this is none of my concern. Somewhere deep inside, the owner's wife felt like she did not find it appropriate to sit with him and then listen. She wanted to go because she had other things to deal with, right? With her husband and all the things that were going on. So she felt like going, but then, however, unwilling to hurt the old man, she continued to sit there quietly. She didn't find it appropriate to stop the conversation. That is why she will sit there trying to listen what the old man had to say. The old man went on. So, after trying to find what he was about to tell, he will continue saying that no, his name was not Sangoji. It was Basavaya. Underline. So, he says, no, no, it's not Sangoji, but it is Basavaya. He expressed his amazement at how facts take on such varied guises when they are narrated as fiction. So then he tells he's very surprised. Amazement is nothing but surprise. He's surprised how sometimes facts can take varied guises. Guises is external appearance. If I say one person's name instead of another person, that person might feel offended, right? Because you're altering everything there. So that is why he expresses his amazement. Just one word misplacement, and look at how things take upon. So that is what he tells. So his story so far is that old man says that far off there was a man called Tamanna. He had everything, 10 acres of wetland. He had people to do his bidding, or people were ready to take the orders of Tamanna, and then he owned everything. Among them, the important one was his rival Sangoji. And then later he clarifies that it is not Sangoji, but his rival's name is Basavaya. Sangoji, please do underline Basavaya also. Let that be. Let us assume his name was Basavaya. Then after coming this far, he will continue with the story. He said, let it be. We will not worry about the name now. Let us consider him as Basavaya. He was Tamanna's rival. If Tamanna bought 4 more acres adjacent to his land, Basavaya also followed suit. So what was the rivalry between them? So if one person bought 10 acres of land, 4 acres of land, if Tamanna bought 4 more acres of land, then Basavaya also would follow the same thing. It was as if Basavaya was always keeping his eyes on Tamanna. Right? Whatever Tamanna does, Basavaya also used to do the same thing. What happens then? If one had 10 friends, the other acquired 15 admirers. Suppose Tamanna had 10 friends, Basavaya would make sure to have 15 admirers, people who would praise him, and vice versa. Things were going on this way. To begin with, all this looked like healthy competition. They were not harming each other. They were just looking at each other and trying to improve their life. It was all okay to some extent. However, gradually it rose to a pitch that there was no land left in the village for them to buy. So it happened so that they all started buying land, and in the entire village there was no land left at all. It was to that an extent. What happens then? All land belonged to either Tamanna or Basavaya. Wherever you could see the land, that belonged to either Tamanna or Basavaya. Basically both of them had taken up all the land which belonged to the village. Tamanna had 1000 acres and Basavaya had 800 acres. Underline this one, very important. Tamanna will finally have 1000 acres of land and Basavaya will have 800 acres of land. Basavaya could not tolerate this. So Basavaya wanted to do something more than what Tamanna did. So what he does now, when Basavaya realizes that Tamanna has a lot of land, 200 acres of extra land than what he has, that is when he could not digest it. So what happens? Tamanna had 1000, Basavaya had 800. What Basavaya does is, he sent a word to Tamanna asking him to sell 200 acres of land. So Basavaya will send his supporters, will send his friends or laborers or anyone to talk to Tamanna and to acquire 200 acres of land. He was ready to pay him and then he was ready to acquire the land. But Tamanna did not agree. They were rivals, right? Tamanna obviously would not agree. What happens then? He was prepared to buy all the land that belonged to Basavaya. He said, no, no, I'll not give my land away, but I'm ready to purchase all the land that belonged to Basavaya. Now what happens with Basavaya? Basavaya was mad with rage. Rage means anger. He was so angry. What he does in that state of mind, he went along with his people and acquired 200 acres of Tamanna's land forcibly. So along with all his supporters, all his friends, Tamanna's garden, Tamanna's land will be acquired by Basavaya. He will forcibly take 200 acres of land. A fence was built around that land. Tamanna could not tolerate this invasion. So Tamanna was doing his business. Basavaya sent to Tamanna asking 200 acres of land. Tamanna refuses. Basavaya will forcibly acquire 200 acres of Tamanna's land. Now Tamanna is not able to tolerate this invasion, somebody taking away something which belonged to him. So what happens next? By now the quarrel between these two had sucked in all their supporters. So it was not just rivalry was not just between Tamanna or Basavaya. All the people had supported Tamanna, and all the rest of the people supported Basavaya. So both the teams, both the groups were fighting against one another. They had this quarrel, heated argument. Tamanna was advised by his supporters about the various means available for getting back his land. So, some of the supporters of Tamanna will advise him. So, they'll give various measures. What are those? There was the court of law. Some suggest that we could go to the court and ask for our land back. And then some people tells that one could also take recourse to the police. We can either go to the police, and some people said if you did not want that, there were many numbers of persons ready to attack Basavaya. So Tamanna will be given three options. He will be given three options. Out of them, the first one says that we can go to the court. The second one, we can take this to the police. Third one, we can physically assault Basavaya. So these were the options given to Tamanna. Such a war had become virtually inevitable. So, given the situation, war was something which was inevitable. The fighting, the clash, which was inevitable, which cannot be stopped at all. It was about to happen. But Tamanna was in search of a method that could annihilate Basavaya completely. He was given a lot of options, but Tamanna was thinking of an option that could completely annihilate Basavaya. Annihilate is nothing but wipe his existence out. There must be no trace of the existence of Basavaya at all. He wanted to do something like that. So what he does, he hit upon the idea of composing all his experiences in the form of ballads and singing them. So what he does, Tamanna will come up with the idea of composing, writing songs. Ballads are nothing but songs of the experience that he has faced, and then he started singing them. This is his way of hitting back at Basavaya. He did not want to do any of the things suggested by his supporters. He simply wanted to sing the ballads of the experience that he has felt with Basavaya, and then he wanted to sing them. Now the rivalry between Tamanna and Basavaya started moving from things that were visible towards an invisible, abstract domain. Very important line. So far the rivalry between two of them were visible, right? So you could see that if one purchased 10 acres, the others would purchase 15 or 20 acres. If one had so many friends, the other would. So this was the kind of rivalry that people could see. But then now the rivalry moved from visible towards an invisible. So this is the abstract domain, that is philosophical domain. Now it has moved to the philosophical domain. Basavaya had no answer to this. So Basavaya could do nothing about the matter of Tamanna singing these songs. He also tried to sing but could not. Basavaya wanted to try out singing. He will try, but then he could not sing. He performed his agricultural tasks more diligently. He'll start working diligently. Diligently is working hard. So he will put all his efforts and try to work really hard in his agriculture. This too was no answer to Tamanna. So he could not give a proper answer to what Tamanna did. Tamanna's reputation started spreading all around because of his ability to sing, because of his ability to compose beautiful ballads and singing them. His reputation started spreading all around. Everyone knew about the songs, the ballads written by Tamanna. He was quite famous. His songs started making a mention of Basavaya's cruelty and his meanness. So basically Tamanna starts singing ballads because he wanted to talk about his personal experience with Basavaya. So gradually what happened, those songs will include Basavaya's cruelty, his meanness and all, and his unkindness. All the bad qualities, the meanness, the unkindness that Basavaya had, all these things will be written in the songs of Tamanna. Scholars of folklore were after him. Critics started analyzing and translating his songs, thus earned their share of fame. Okay, scholars of folklore, right? All those scholars, they involved together, they started uh, listening to the songs, and they were so much in praise of Tamanna. Not only that, critics are the people who talk about other people's work, critical essay, right? So which means that you are trying to talk about another person's work through your perspective, right? So here critics started analyzing, and they also started translating Tamanna's songs into different languages, and here the critics earned a lot of fame because of Tamanna. Basavaya helplessly watched all this, consumed by anger. So Basavaya was so angry, but then he could do nothing about it. He was helpless because of what he did. He encroached more and more into Tamanna's land. He was angry, but then he understood that Tamanna would not care now. He has already ruined my name. So what he did, he started acquiring more and more of Tamanna's land. Tamanna did not notice any of these activities. Art had become his reason for being for his life. Okay, so Basavaya started encroaching the land belonged to Tamanna, but Tamanna did not notice any of these things because he moved from the physical domain to the philosophical domain. For him now, he had realized about the materialistic things. Tamanna knew that these materialistic things, the land, the fame, money, all these things are meaningless. Peace of mind is something which is important. So he understood this one. So what he did not notice any of the things done by Basavaya, and then he says art had become the reason data for his life, reason for being. So why art had become the reason for the existence of Tamanna. Okay, underline this one. Reason data is nothing but reason for being, his existence. The reason why Tamanna was alive was because of his art had become very important. All the things that he possessed were no longer of any importance. He was felicitated as the best poet of his times. So Tamanna was awarded uh, as the best poet of his times. What happens to Basavaya? Basavaya shrunk in humiliation. Shrunk, he was reduced, he was made to look very small. He was humiliated, he was shamed by a lot of people because his songs conveyed about his personalities, his character. So he was reduced in shame. Nevertheless, he started filling his life with all kind of material wealth. So he could not do certain things, so he started doing these things, like he started encroaching Tamanna's land, and he what else he did, he acquired a lot of material wealth. He got a palatial mansion built for himself. Basavaya will get a very luxurious mansion built for himself. He appointed a number of persons just to praise him. So he wanted some people to praise him as well. So what he does, he will appoint people to do that. He bedecked himself with gold, diamonds, and other precious stones. He will bedeck himself, that is, he'll start wearing a lot of gold, diamonds, and other precious stones, enhance his looks. But his house looked dull and empty because of Tamanna's books were not there. Underline this sentence. No matter what he did, no matter how many materialistic things he acquired, his palatial mansion, that is a luxurious mansion, it always looked dull and pale and lifeless because Tamanna's books were not there. Underline, that is the importance of books. Tamanna's books here. Okay, that's the importance of books. They are the actual treasure. That is what the visitors told him. So the visitors said that you do not have Tamanna's books in your house. That is why your house is looking dull, even with all these luxurious items. Therefore, he started inviting scholars, poets, and musicians to his place. Now, Basavaya wanted to make sure that it looked very grand. That is why he will invite scholars, musicians, poets. This was his way of investing his home with meaning. So he had everything, but then Basavaya did not have peace of mind. He could not continue with his life for himself. He was doing all the things because he could not stand the fame that was given to Tamanna. What happens ultimately? One day he came to know that Tamanna was ill. At that point, Basavaya found means of surpassing Tamanna. So Basavaya one day will learn that Tamanna was no longer healthy. There was something that was wrong with Tamanna. What was that? Basavaya found the means of surpassing Tamanna. So when Tamanna became ill, because health is wealth, right? Health gives you everything. If you don't have health, despite having everything, it is simply nothing. So when Basavaya finds out that Tamanna was ill, he thinks that maybe now is the time to surpass. Now it is the time for me to grow better than Tamanna. Health is wealth. You may sing, you may write balance, but if Tamanna started suffering from disease, surely his own spirits would be revived. So Basavaya is telling to himself, you might sing, you might write, but without help, what will you do? Your health is my wealth, he says. Your health, you are falling sick now, you don't feel good, right? So once you are sick, my spirits would be revived. Basavaya's spirits would be revived. Revived means it will be restored. Okay, so whatever humiliation, whatever sufferings that I've gone through, just because you are ill right now, all those things will be given back to me. My spirits would be revived, and that is when he says Tamanna's disease was Basavaya's wealth. Underline this one. So the sufferings of Tamanna was a pleasure to Basavaya. What happens then? However, by this time, Tamanna had thought of yet another method of punishing Basavaya. Tamanna knew I was going to die, or maybe he knew that he was sick, and then he came up with another idea to punish Basavaya, that was death. If he continued at the level of the body, Basavaya would go on offering a stiff competition. So he says, at this level of the body, we will go on having a very stiff, tough competition between the two of us. Somehow I should stop that, what he says. But if the songs were separated from his body, if there was no relation between the songs of his own flesh and blood, this is how his thoughts went on. So he's telling, what if I separate my feelings? What if I separate my songs from my flesh and blood? That is, he's talking about death. Okay, Tamanna is talking about, what if I die now? People would still start admiring me because of the work that I've done, and then people would start punishing Basavaya. He will always be in the history. Basavaya will be labeled as a very bad person. So Tamanna will be thinking this way, and then finally what happens? That's when I realized how strange human nature can be. And then the old man says, during that moment, I realized how strange human nature can be, how weird human beings are, what is the level of their thinking. The old man began his explanation to the owner's wife, and then he'll start continuing. He says, man needs wealth, education, art, and many more things. So it is true, for a man to live properly, he needs wealth, he needs education, he has to admire art, and then he has to have some other things as well, and yet he lives in some kind of unbearable vengefulness. Despite having all these things, your mind will not be satisfied. You want some kind of vengefulness. Vengefulness is nothing but revenge. You want to take revenge for something that had happened before. See, Tamanna could have stopped right after he falls sick. He might have said, okay, this is done now, enough of it. He has understood, because Tamanna is moved to the philosophical domain. There he understands that he will not be taking all these things when he dies. So he should have stopped there. But even then, in that situation, he thinks he should punish Basavaya. That is why he is telling this man had everything. He had wealth, friends, education, everything, but still he lived for some kind of unbearable vengefulness. He wanted to take revenge of some kind. Without it, there would be no reason for his existence. So, without which it seems as if there is no reason for his existence. This is not a real story, only what I've heard somewhere. So, the narration part, now, once in a while here, from now onwards, the writer gives surprises like this. So, he says this is not a real story, and then he says something else. Okay. So, he says without that kind of revenge taking attitude, life would seem meaningless. There would be no reason for the existence of people at all. And then he says this is not a real story, only something that I've heard of. You may know that I subscribe to a daily, so you might have seen how I am right now. You might have seen me conversing with people, so I've just heard it from somewhere. To you, I am just an old man. Then he's telling to the wife. She's still wondering, what is this got to do anything with my husband's behavior? She's still wondering, but then he makes a point here. To you, for the owner's wife, I might be just the old man. I might be an old man. After a particular age, man loses his name. So all the fame that he has acquired, everything, his name also will be forgotten. I am an old man in this garden, your servant. Then he tells, yes, I am an old man. I'm working in this garden as your servant. I am also the person who reads the newspaper and looks after the garden properly. Then he also says, not only that, I'm also the person who looks after the garden. I will supervise everything. I'll take care of everything. Not just a servant here. I know a lot. I do a lot of things. And then he says, I conceived the story of Tamanna and Basavaya when all of a sudden Russia told America, I'm not your enemy. I shall not wage a war against you. So he tells, I came up with this story of Tamanna and Basavaya when Russia told America, I'm not your enemy, I shall not wage a war against you. So America was always ready, is always ready with all the things that it needs. It is defending itself to make sure that no enemy attacks it. But all of a sudden, if the enemy says, I will not wage war against you, what's the point of spending a lot of money on all the defense stuff and things like that? So that is what Tamanna and Basavaya's story is about. Without any sort of vengefulness, revenge taking attitude, I don't think life will be very pleasant, according to old man. So now he says, I'm not your enemy, I shall not wage a war against you. This was told by Russia to America. What must have been the reaction of America, the sworn enemy of Russia, to this declaration? So, what might have been the reaction of the Americans? Probably you will not understand the agony and boredom of America. Agony is nothing but pain. You might not understand the pain. They were busy trying to protect themselves. But if the enemy says, I'll not harm you, you should understand that there is a lot of pain. Oh, we were working so hard to protect ourselves. But what will happen now? If you are not hurting us, what's the point of defending ourselves so much? So he tells, you will not understand the agony and boredom of America once it knew Russia was no longer an enemy. A nation is capable of withstanding strains like this, but a human being cannot. So then Tamanna's old man says, a nation, a large group of people can bear this pain, but a human being, a mere human being, just a human being cannot withstand like this. But a human being cannot. I suffered a similar fate. When I went through something like this, I thought my death alone could destroy Basavaya. Very important line. Then he says, I thought, this is the words of the old man, I thought if I died, that would annihilate, that would destroy Basavaya. I gave up everything and started off. Okay, but what happens then? A few days after I left, Basavaya passed away. I had no more reason to live. So if you understand, Tamanna started getting a lot of fame indirectly because of Basavaya himself. Suppose Basavaya was not cruel, he was very kind, he wouldn't have, Tamanna wouldn't have gotten a lot of fame. All the things that he has right now wouldn't have been the same without Basavaya. So for Tamanna's existence, Basavaya's cruelty for a reason, for a really long time. What happens then? He says, after I left, I felt bad. So during this fight, during this rivalry thing, Tamanna all of a sudden feels like he should not continue doing this, but then he will move someplace else. And then once he realizes that Basavaya has passed away, is dead right now, that is when Tamanna feels like he has no more reason to live. My name is Tamanna. After his death, I forgot all my songs and ballads. So the old man says, my name is Tamanna. After the death of Basvaya, I forgot all my songs, all my ballads. It is because of him I wrote, but once he was non-existent, all the works that I had done, all of them vanished as well. I forgot them. I, who was once famous, became a non-entity. I was very famous once. Critics were praising me, scholars were praising me. I had a lot of translators translating my work. I was very famous one day, but all of a sudden I became a non-entity. Non-entity is a very not so important person. So I became a mere human being, just a human being. Thus, I avenged myself. Avenged is taking revenge. I took revenge on myself by doing so. I shouldn't have been so harsh when it came to Basvaya. But Basvaya thought Tamanna would die, but actually Basvaya himself dies here. Okay, now the old man says to the owner's wife, your husband is flourishing today as a rich man. He is not amenable to any advice. So your husband is flourishing, he is growing today because he has a lot of wealth. He is not amenable. Amenable is he is not listening, he is not obedient to any of the advice that you give. Man is so complicated that till the day of his death, he goes on living for some revenge or the other, confronting one challenge or the other. So he is not directly talking to the wife about her problems. He is indirectly telling her, see, you cannot control a man. Tamanna had a lot of supporters. They gave him three options, but did Tamanna listen to the supporters, or did he do what he felt was right? Only after his mistake, he will realize whatever he was doing was wrong for Basavaya. The same way, indirectly, he is talking about the owner to the owner's wife, and then he tells, he will not listen to you. He will go on living the way he want to. Don't waste your energy. Don't worry about a man, because he will continue doing one or the other thing. So if he stops one thing, tomorrow he will cultivate some other thing. He will not listen. So indirectly he is telling, don't worry, Amma, do not think otherwise. So then he tells, don't think otherwise, just assume I did not tell you any of this. And then finally he says, just assume I have not told you anything at all, or think all this happened in a dream. So he doesn't want to be remembered this way. So he tells, either you think that I've not told you any of this, or then you think it as a dream and forget about it. The laborers have started going home. Remember, it was evening when they started talking there. The sun was setting and the rays were falling through the foliage of mangoes, coconut, and jackfruits and all. So it was evening. So by the time he finishes off with the story, it was late in the evening and all the laborers were going home. And the old man, as the overseer, he had to look after it. And then he says, the young child of Lokya paints well. Underline this one. He is bedridden with fever. I shall pay him a visit. Now he tries to change the subject. He says, the young child of Lokya. Lokya might be one of the laborers there. The child of this person, he paints well. Okay, so he is an artist. He paints really well, and then he is bedridden with fever. But unfortunately, this poor boy, he is bedridden with fever. I shall pay a visit to him. That means I'll go look what is happening with him. So he is also empathetic. He also tries to understand the feeling of the other people, right? That is why he is called as an overseer, laborer, philosopher. And then he says, forgive me, and I'm unable to elaborate. I've told you whatever I felt as it is. I'd seen all this in a dream. And then finally, the same kind of sentence to end the story. So this is translated by H.S. Raghavendra Rao. So first thing you should remember, the old man's description, how the old man was and everything. You should remember what happened after the old man arrived at the plantation, what was the changes that happened to the owner once the arrival of the old man happened. So all those things. And then you should remember the story of Tamanna and Basvaya. Tamanna initially had 1,000 acres of land, Basvaya had 800, and then that is where the clash begins. All these things important. Another point, the three options that were given, so you should remember all those things. And then art had become the reason for his being for Tamanna, that please do remember. And what Basvaya did in order to overcome the fame that Tamanna was getting, please do write that one. And that's all. Those stuff are very important. Make sure to read the short story, it is quite enjoyable. And if you have any doubts, please do contact me. That's all for today. Thank you.